Welcome back to High Stakes. Today, we will be discussing the following NCAAF matches that is happening on Sunday, September 24th, 2023. We will be providing our team, total, and prop picks for the day. Before we get started, please remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. If you want access to our premium picks, you can check out our Patreon page. You can find the link to our Patreon page in the description and comment section below. Los Angeles Chargers versus Minnesota Vikings. Take Minnesota -1. In what was a revenge game, after getting the doors blown off them in Week 2 by the Eagles, the Vikings managed to cover the number, depending on where bettors got it. The line moved as high as 8.5 to as low as 5.5, and the game ended on 6. Minnesota muddied things up in the passing game but was exposed for over 250 on the ground. Kirk Cousins tossed for 4 touchdowns and 364 yards. Minnesota's offense has once again been complemented by Kirk Cousins throwing to Justin Jefferson. That was the recipe again against the Eagles as Jefferson hauled in 11 targets for 159 yards. It hasn't helped that, with the absence of Dalvin Cook, the Vikings' running game just hasn't been productive with Alexander Mattison leading the way. Mattison carried the ball 7 times, but could only muster 28 yards. Mid-season addition TJ Hawkinson was a nice red zone option for the Vikings, and he was targeted twice inside the 20 on passes that resulted in scores. On the season, the Vikings sit around the league average with 22.5 points per game, but are generating a strong 6.3 yards per play. They've converted on third down at one of the highest rates in the league, and they've also been efficient in the red zone. Though Cousins did show us he's willing to force throws near the goal line, and that resulted in a costly interception in Week 1 against Tampa Bay. Either way, the passing game has only gotten stronger with rookie Jordan Addison adding more deep threat viability. This should ultimately open up the run game for Mattison, who has been rather pedestrian in the early going. It'll be important to watch the injury report for the Vikings O-line as starting center. Bradbury missed action against the Eagles and is still questionable. Cam Akers was traded to the Vikings while this article was being written. He has passed his physical, and it's expected that he will be donning the purple and gold for Sunday's matchup. Just like the rushing offense has struggled, so has the defense. The Vikings seemingly couldn't stop a nosebleed against the Eagles on the ground. They were outmatched at the line of scrimmage, but they still gave up over 250 rushing yards and 3 running scores. What makes matters worse for the defense is that starting safety Josh Metellus and LB Jordan Hicks are both questionable for Sunday's action. Without the experienced defensive backfield, the Vikings could be vulnerable to Herbert in the passing game. Minnesota is already allowing opposing QBs to complete throws and over 68%, and playing thin in the defensive secondary will open up weaknesses Los Angeles can exploit. The defensive line has shown they can generate pressure as they've logged a sack on over 8% of QB dropbacks, which comes out to 2.5 per contest. As mentioned, the ground defense could get exposed again here, and the Vikings haven't demonstrated they can come away with key stops in the red zone if need be. They bailed the Eagles out with penalties inside the 20, and giving another strong offense like the Chargers fresh downs near the goal line will almost certainly spell trouble. This game is undoubtedly a toss-up, featuring 2 high-powered offenses and questionable defensive performances. Minnesota enjoys a clear advantage by playing at home, but they also effectively had a week off, having played on Thursday night the previous week. In contrast, the Chargers were involved in a grueling matchup against the Titans that required overtime to determine a winner. Kirk Cousins has shown a strong connection with his wide receivers, and Alexander Mattison might have an opportunity to excel, especially considering that the Chargers' defense struggled against the run in their game against Tennessee. Ultimately, it's challenging to have confidence in Chargers coach Staley when the game is on the line, making critical decisions. Therefore, it's likely that the Vikings will secure their first victory in this contest. Also take over 53.5 points. With totals this high, it's hard to chase the steam. But this number is over 52 for good reason. Neither of these defenses has exhibited any sort of confidence that they'll make stops in the red zone or consistently get off the field on third down. The Vikings were exposed on the ground by the Eagles, and Tannehill routinely connected on the deep ball against the Chargers. It shapes up to be a game with two gunslinger quarterbacks with high-caliber weapons that love to air it out against defenses that haven't found their footing. Both teams have been efficient inside the 20 offensively and are tied for 6th in touchdowns per game. The total is high, but for good reason. Chase the steam and play the over. Tennessee Titans versus Cleveland Browns. Take the Browns to cover at home. After opening their season with a dominant 24-3 win in their division against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, the Browns could not put it all together for 2 games in a row. On the national stage of Monday Night Football, they lost 26-22 to the Steelers on the road in Pittsburgh. The game was electric to watch with plenty of turnovers for both teams. Deshaun Watson and the Browns' passing offense was awful. He went 22-40 for just 235 yards with a touchdown, a pick-6 on the first play of the game, and 2 lost fumbles, including the game-winning scoop and score from T.J. Watt. The offensive line was terrible for the Browns, letting Watson get sacked 6 times and not giving him any time in the pocket. The rushing offense was good, running for 198 yards and a touchdown. They took a huge injury though, as they lost Nick Chubb, their leading running back and one of the best in the NFL for the season, with a knee injury. Jerome Ford stepped in to replace him with a solid performance, rushing for 106 yards on 16 carries. Cleveland's defense was very good, limiting Kenny Pickett to just 222 yards and a touchdown, with 1 interception and sacking him twice. The Browns limited the Steelers' rushing attack to just 55 yards on 21 carries. Watson has really struggled as the Browns' quarterback. Statistically, he has been the worst of the 34 quarterbacks who have had at least 300 plays since the start of last season. Last season, Cleveland averaged 21.2 points per game, 18th in the NFL, and they allowed an average of 22.4 points per game, ranking 20th in the league. The Browns lost on Monday night despite being the better team statistically, and I expect them to bounce back with a win at home, covering the 3.5-point spread and win by at least a touchdown. After Nick Chubb got injured, Jerome Ford was very good in the rushing attack for Cleveland, and even if Deshaun Watson struggles again, I think they can rely on Ford to have a big game. RB Kareem Hunt was also just added as insurance, but this will be more about Watson getting the ball to Amari Cooper and company. The Titans' offense has not been good, and the Browns' defense has been fantastic and should stifle them. Also take the under in this matchup and don't expect many points. After losing their first game of the season in New Orleans by just a point, 16-15, the Titans bounced back last Sunday with a 27-24 victory at home in overtime against the Chargers. That win snapped an 8-game losing streak dating back to November of last season, with a walk-off field goal in OT from Nick Folk. After a horrible game in Week 1, Ryan Tannehill had a solid performance against LA, going 20-24 for 246 yards and a touchdown. Star running back Derrick Henry rushed for 80 yards and a touchdown on 25 carries. Defensively, Tennessee struggled a bit against the pass, allowing Justin Herbert to go 27-41 for 305 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they were very good against the run, limiting the Chargers to just 61 yards on the ground and sacking Herbert 3 times. I don't expect a whole lot of scoring in this game, and the books don't either, with a very low total in this game of just 39.5. I like the under here, expecting both teams to struggle to score. Neither quarterback has had much success this season, with both Tannehill and Watson having issues. The Browns' defense was very good in both of their games this season, even in the loss on Monday night. I can't see the Titans being able to score more than 14 points in this game, and even if Deshaun Watson and Cleveland's offense could score 24 points, that still would keep the game under the 39.5-point total. Indianapolis Colts versus Baltimore Ravens. Take Baltimore giving the points. Baltimore picked up their second win of the young season by defeating the Cincinnati Bengals 0-2 SU, 4th in AFC North, 27-24 on the road Sunday. Dynamic quarterback Lamar Jackson passed for 237 yards and tossed 2 touchdown passes and rushed for 54 yards to lead the Ravens to victory in their first road game of the year. The Ravens took a 13-10 into the half on 2 field goals and a RB Gus Edwards 1-yard score, and they never looked back. Baltimore rushers excelled throughout the contest, gaining 178 total yards on the ground, led by Edwards with 62. Nelson Agholor led Baltimore receivers with 5 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. The Ravens' defense contained Cincinnati's Joe Burrow enough to snag the win, limiting him to 222 yards on 27 of 41 passing and 2 touchdowns. Cincinnati cut the lead to 3 with under 4 minutes to play in the game, but they couldn't stop Jackson on the final drive and Baltimore ran out the clock. The Ravens have won both of their games against the spread in 2023, including a convincing 25-9 victory against the Texans at home in Week 1. They have won 2 of their previous 3 games at home ATS dating back to last season. The Colts have lost 6 of their last 9 games against the spread away from their home stadium. The Colts have failed to cover the spread in 7 of their last 8 games versus AFC North opponents. While the Colts did win their first road game of 23 against a weak Houston squad, their defense allowed the opposing QB to throw for 384 yards and their offensive unit was on the field for 10 minutes less than their rival. The Ravens have ranked much higher than the Texans over the past year in points allowed per game and total yards allowed, so the Colts will most likely not win a shootout on the road as they did in Week 2. The Colts offense stalled a bit after the departure of QB Richardson with a concussion last week. Indianapolis scored 14 points in the first quarter with Richardson at the helm and scored a total of 17 points over 3 quarters without him. The Ravens have scored the first TD in 12 of their last 13 home games, so the Colts may find themselves in a hole early while trying to break in their new offensive schemes if Richardson does not play. With Richardson most likely out for the coming contest and Baltimore having a full week to prepare for his inexperienced backup, look for the Colts to struggle against the Ravens' top-tier defensive unit. Most signs point to a comfortable Ravens victory at home. Also take under 45 points. The Colts won their first game of the new season when they defeated the Houston Texans 0-2 SU, 4th in AFC South, 31-20 on the road Sunday. Indianapolis quarterback Anthony Richardson rushed for 2 touchdowns before being forced out of the game in the first quarter with a concussion. Backup Gardner Minshew subbed for Richardson and threw for 171 yards and a TD in the second quarter, and the Colts held on for the win. Coach Shane Steichen picked up his first victory as head coach of Indianapolis. After jumping out to an 18-point lead in the second quarter, the Colts offense managed only a field goal from that point on, but it was enough to snap an 8-game losing streak dating back to 2022. Running back Zach Moss led all rushers with 88 yards and a TD for the Colts. The Indianapolis defense had trouble containing rookie QB CJ Stroud at times, 30-47 for 384 yards and 2 TDs, but they did sack him on 6 different occasions. The Baltimore defense ranked 3rd in the NFL in average points allowed per game in 2022 with 18.8. They have had similar results this season, and they have managed to shave a few points off of their average, 16.5. The Ravens have gone under the point total in 8 straight games at home dating back to the 4th week of the season last year. While the Colts have gone over the point total and scored at least 21 points in both of their games this season, most of their possessions came with the dynamic Richardson under center. Indianapolis may have difficulty creating scoring opportunities with a backup quarterback running their offense against a brutal defensive unit on the road. The Colts will still face a stiff challenge offensively if Richardson is cleared to play, as the Ravens' defense has limited their opponent to 13 points or less in each of their previous 5 games at Mant Bank Stadium. The Colts ranked second to last in the league in average points per game on the road last season. Most signs point to a lower scoring affair on Sunday.